Hi, I'm Natalie Abrams with Colson Patisserie. We're in Industry City, Sunset Park in Brooklyn, New York. And so today we're going to make a Galette de Rois. It's a king's cake for Epiphany, and we're making it for the whole month of January. It comes in almond and pistachio cherry at Colson. Personally, I like the pistachio cherry a lot, but everybody's a traditionalist here, so we sell a lot more of the almond. So we start out with just some really basic puff pastry. We make our puff pastry in-house. We have a gigantic kitchen and a wonderful sheeter, which basically makes the dough super smooth, super flat, super even all the time. And so these are lovely big circles. These cakes generally feed 6 to 8 people, and they'll puff up quite a bit once they're done. So first we just shape it a little bit to make sure that it's really a perfect circle. And so just a little stretch, but you don't want to distort the dough too much. And what you're going to do is basically always aim for an even amount of circles, because you want one layer on the bottom and then another layer for the top. So I'm just going to get all of my layers separated out, make sure I have enough of each.
So Danielle wants to know if she's making this at home, is there any other dough she can use instead of making that from scratch?
You can buy store-bought puff. It's really normally quite similar to actually what you would be able to get at home. Laminating puff dough is actually pretty tricky unless you have a proper sheeter to do it, or you really want to invest a lot of time and manpower and just sort of precision. It's a good weekend project if you did feel like folding butter into dough many times. But otherwise, store-bought puff is actually not a terrible substitute.
So Bianca and Crystal just joined. They want to know what you're making.
So we're making Galette de Rois here with almond cream, a little bit of apricot at the bottom, and it comes with a sort of hidden figure on the inside. So we'll put that inside the cream, and then whoever's the lucky winner basically gets the slice with the figure. Traditionally, I believe it is baby Jesus or more of a religious token, but we get to switch things up a little bit here. So we're doing a lecture. We've got an awesome Galette de Rois here, actually. Yay. And then sort of the more traditional cow and octopus, because octopuses are cool.
So Casey and Carlo just joined. They want to know, what kind of dough is this?
So this is puff pastry, and it's a basically very simple sort of flour, a little bit of sugar, salt, and just folded in with butter, laminated. We have a sheeter here which helps us basically get the dough nice and thin. Then we put butter in, we fold it over a bunch of times, and we do the whole process a bunch of times. So that way you have in this dough lots of tiny little layers of butter, which you can't see right now, but once it bakes, that's why they call it puff. It puffs up so much that you have to actually weigh it down. And it's going to be our last over here. So we've got our fire alarm testing today, which is just super, but this is kitchen life, so it's all good.
Hey, Nat.
Hi.
Good girl. The chicken didn't come in.
No.
It was on your order, it was not on the order. Like that. Peace out.
All right, so now we've got all of our trays separated. In total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means I'm gonna do 2.5 bottoms and 2.5 tops. Everything is all nice and even now. I've got nice even circles. And so the first part is basically a nice big, this amounts to about a tablespoon of apricot jam. And so we just put it sort of in a nice circle in the middle. And normally when you're doing something like this, it's nice to be very systematic about it. So what I'm actually going to do is do all of the bottoms the first step first, and then it in the end ends up making things a little bit more efficient, a little bit faster, especially when you're working on a really large scale. Today we're actually only doing 5 galette, so for us that's actually quite small. We've sold several hundred over the past month, so we like to kind of do these in great big batches. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, one more.
Kristen wants to know, can you play around with the ingredients that you put in the center?
Of course, we actually did a pistachio cherry galette de Rois, which I loved, and which people didn't go for so much because most of our customers ended up actually being French citizens or people who have lived in France for a long time and are very familiar with this dessert, and they wanted it in a very traditional manner. So we're doing it with a mixture of frangipane, which is this glorious mixture here. This is almond paste and ground almonds and some sugar and some cream. And then we also make pastry cream and fold that in as well. So it kind of lightens it up a bit.
Brianna said she's never had it with filling. She's missed out.
Yeah, it's pretty delicious. So after you put on the apricot, you're basically just going to pipe a really nice even circle. And that way, because you do want to bake this, it's just a nicer texture overall. So the pastry cream is cooked all the way, so it's not raw eggs. It's basically almond paste, some sugar, and then that's when we fold in the pastry cream. So now we're gonna just pipe a really nice circle.
Mary wants to know what a king cake is.
So this king cake is basically layers of puff pastry filled with some sort of cream, or not filled, as we've found out. And it has a hidden trinket on the inside. So whoever's lucky is the king for the day, and they get to wear the crown. So we can start with octopus, because octopus. So yeah, it just goes right in there, with a little bit on top. And these are all ceramic. They're actually also French. And yeah, they're just, we always have to warn people though that they're inside, so that way nobody bites too aggressively.
Stephanie wants to know where the bakery is located.
So we have 2 branches right now. One is in Park Slope, Brooklyn, New York, and the branch that I'm working out of right now is in Industry City, Sunset Park, Brooklyn, New York. So We expanded basically due to wholesale clients, and so now we have a very robust wholesale business, which enables us to have this amazing, wonderful, huge kitchen, which you are only seeing a tiny portion of right now.
Danny wants to know, is there a queen cake?
That would be a good idea, actually. Maybe next year our pistachio one will be the queen cake because it's better. No, so on the outside we're just doing a little bit of water. That's going to help seal it. And so then I'm actually going to take one of the tops over here. And just put it right on top.
Alexis wants to know why you dotted water around the edges before you're putting the slider on.
This is basically to just help the puff seal together a little bit. When you bake it, the almond cream won't fly out. So we actually bake these we freeze them a little bit first and then defrost them for only 20 minutes. It still feels frozen when you touch it, but that way the almond cream actually stays more solid, and it helps it kind of keep everything inside, because the puff otherwise just goes up and it doesn't really stick to each other as much as you would think it would. So, put this guy over here. Do the same thing a few more times this time. Normally I do start at the center just for faster piping. And so this is our almond cream again, the pastry cream and almond paste kind of folded together. We're gonna bake it with the little trinket inside. This guy gets a lecture. So yeah, now she gets covered up, hidden away. And then we're just gonna repeat the same thing for this pan. So yeah, I mean, generally doing these, we do a big batch and it takes up a good portion of your day. But overall, we always are trying to work as quickly, well, precisely as possible, because you never, ever want quality to suffer. That would pretty much be the end of us. But at the same time, there is an enormous amount of work to do here, and so you really have to just become comfortable with the idea of working kind of as fast as you can all the time. And eventually, you get to the point where that's just your natural tempo. This guy gets the galette. Cover him up. A little bit of water around the edge. And it's just nice to finish this step before moving on to the next step, because that way you know that everybody's sort of on the same page. That you haven't missed one, or you didn't forget the trinket for one, or something like that. When you're doing a really large quantity, it's also really good to work stepwise. But if you're just doing them at home, you can kind of go all the way and keep finishing them as you go. So we're just sealing the edge here. We have a little bit of water at the bottom, not egg. Egg might actually kind of hinder how much it rises. So that's why we just do a little bit of water, and also it's just quicker, a little bit of easier. We do put an egg wash on the top, which is going to be the next step after this. And That is equal number of eggs to egg yolk, along with a splash of water and a little pinch of sugar and a little pinch of salt. The sugar and the salt actually help sort of keep the top really shiny, extra shiny. And yeah, it just makes it look really nice.
Trisha wants to know, do you do any carving of a spiral on top?
Yes, so the egg wash and the carving is going to be the next step, and then they'll essentially be good to go. They're actually, overall, if you're doing store-bought puff, this is actually a really pretty easy, pretty manageable dessert to make at home, and one that looks really impressive. So nobody will ever blame you for buying puff pastry, because honestly the quality too of store-bought brands have gotten pretty good. So last one. And a little bit more cream. So for our ratio of almond cream, we basically use 300 grams of pastry cream, fresh made. It has to pretty much be from that day, to 1 kilo, 1,000 grams of frangipane, which is almond paste mixed with a little bit of sugar, and everything is measured in grams, always, pretty much. It just makes everything much easier and much easier to scale too. So our last two, we've got a little, I think it's like a whatchamacallit them, a vole?
Good idea. A dog with glasses.
A dog with glasses, sure. I'll take dog with glasses better than a vole. And so the carving of the top, you can either do nice and intricate. We have 2 examples that we just baked off this morning. Or, I mean, personally, I just kind of do a sort of starburst around. And that way it still looks very nice, but it doesn't take you forever. So. I had one extra. Oh well. There we go. So just cover it lightly. You can kind of pull it a little bit, and then just seal the very edge with your fingers.
Tracy wants to know if she makes the filling at home, how long will it last in the fridge?
Maybe 3 days. 2 days is safer. So oh good, here's our other one. The last one. There we go. So once again, you're just kind of sealing the edges.
Callie wants to know, are these all individual cakes, or are you about to layer them?
No, these are all individual. They actually get nice and tall, about 1.5 inches. We actually weigh them down so they get less tall and less explodey. But that way they also stay very even. And so now we do an egg wash and cut. So we have very nice little paring knives. Make your life easy. You want to make a hole in the center to let moisture out, and then pretty much I go around in a little sort of, I don't know if sunburst or is the correct term, but
Valentine wants to know, after you cook it, how long would you recommend keeping it?
we always sell these pretty much same day, and recommend eating them same day if possible. The puff pastry does taste better same day, in my opinion, but I've also eaten one after like 3 days and it's still pretty good.
So Monica wants to know what you were just doing with the knife drawing on the top.
So that way it's just scoring the dough a little bit, and it's just pretty much making a design. You can do it without the design. You're not cutting all the way through the dough, but it is sort of traditional that King's cakes have some sort of design on top. So even you can do a little crosshatch. Instead of making it perfect squares, I do like to make nice diamonds. But yeah, we did a whole bunch of designs and they all came out great. So you can really change it up and pretty much do whatever you would like on the top. Just don't cut all the way through the dough, because you're really just scoring it and almost going about halfway through. It'll leave sort of nice lines when it bakes. So these are pretty much good to go. As I said before, we're going to freeze them for a while first because we have almond cream in the center. We want to keep that solid while the cake bakes. So we freeze them for, I would say, at least an hour, and then they defrost for 20 minutes. It's a little backwards, but keeps the almond cream stable, and then that way when they bake, everything stays inside because we've only sealed it with a little bit of water on the edge. So those are done. Got a few more, and then we'll just take a look at what the actual finished version looks like. These bake, because they're so large, at 160 degrees Celsius, which translates to about 325. It's better to preheat your oven a little hot when you put them in, so that way they get a nice amount of color on them too. And you really don't want to be opening up your oven a lot when you're baking them, because the puff really does respond to wild temperature variations, and it does a lot better, and it'll come out looking much nicer if you keep the oven door closed. So we do these at 325 for 20 minutes, and if we're using a normal sort of convection oven, you have to turn them around so that way they're baking evenly. You'll actually see that the puff on the hotter area of the oven will be a little bit taller, because it's just gotten that much more heat, and the butter has lifted up the dough enough that it actually has a sort of significant height difference.
So Facebook is getting very impatient. So maybe
Sorry.
after this one,
Okay.
you can see the final results.
Yes. All right. So I'm just going to show you how we bake them. Basically, what you want to do is put a piece of parchment on top once it's frozen and defrosted, and then we take a cooling rack, turn it upside down, and then this is how we bake it in the oven. It helps weigh down the puff, pretty much.
Cool.
So here's two finished examples. You can see how nice and tall they are. That's like all those nice little layers of butter in there, basically making everything nice and tall. And finally, because there's never enough sugar, We do a sort of reduced simple syrup on top. It keeps it shiny, and it also helps it just stay fresh on top and not get stale. You want to have this nice and either warm or at the very least room temperature. And then we normally put some powdered sugar around the edge. But that's it, basically Galette de Rois.
Beautiful.
Do we want to cut into a piece?
Yeah, let's cut it.
All right.
And while you're cutting it, tease what we're going to do next for the next segment.
All right, so for the next segment, we're actually going to do one of Colson's sort of most popular pastries, especially among the younger crowd. And we've got nice special shapes, and they're delicious and nutty, and there's going to be far more of them than there are of these. We've got a gigantic oven that we'll get to see inside of. So this is the almond cream that you can kind of see. It's baked nicely, and you do want your bottom to be a nice caramelized brown, pretty much the same as your top.
Gorgeous. Okay.
So yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.